Hey there, welcome to the Profit Logic YouTube channel. My name is Andrew Bloom. If we have not met before, I am a PhD student in business with a concentration in accounting, and I'm also a bookkeeper for my small firm, Profit Logic. I help small businesses and real estate investors with their monthly bookkeeping, as well as catch up or cleanup projects. So if you're ever in need of a bookkeeper who has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on accounting education, I would be more than happy to help you. So today I'm going to show you how to use Wave. Now, if you're either a new business owner or you're a business owner who is trying to get going with doing your bookkeeping, maybe you haven't started yet and you're not sure which software you're going to be using, you might be shopping around. And the first option that's always recommended is QuickBooks. Now, over the last couple of years, especially in the last year in particular, QuickBooks has added a lot of new AI features. And while that software is definitely still the reigning gold standard for accounting and online software bookkeeping, it is getting pretty pricey to use their services. You're looking easily for a small business, at least $100 a month just for the software alone. And then when you add in things like Payroll and additional like AI features and whatnot, inventory, class tracking, it's easily almost $200 a month to use their services. Now, there are a couple other software available, such as Xero and FreshBooks. I've flirted with playing around with them before. I didn't really find either to be as user-friendly. The UX design looked a little outdated, and the price was still cheaper than QuickBooks, but not necessarily as cheap as Wave, which is the software I'm going to show you today. And I think Wave is hands down the best budget bookkeeping software that you can find. It is highly intuitive. I feel like it's easier for business owners to navigate and use. It's a simpler platform. It's also highly affordable. You're looking at spending at most maybe $25 a month, and it's even cheaper if you either sign up for an annual plan or if you just manually enter your transactions or upload your bank statements, which I'm going to show you in this course. Then you can use Wave software for free. I will note that Wave is not quite as robust as QuickBooks. There's just a handful of features. I do not think this is an appropriate software if you're trying to track inventory. Some bookkeepers might not work with it. However, I will say if you are a small business under 100 transactions per month, you're a service-based business, you're just sending out invoices, or you're running all your payments through a payment processor online, then this should be okay for you. Wave should be a good option. Also, if you're a real estate investor and you only have a couple of properties, maybe one or two, that you track, then this could also be a possible bookkeeping resource for you as well. So let me go through a quick rundown of what we're going to do today. First, I'm going to show you the two main plans that Wave offers. It's free option and it's paid option. It's pro version. What those features look like in comparison. And then we're going to go through the setup process of opening their free account. From there, I'm going to show you a quick overview of the dashboard and all the different pages in Wave, just so you can get a feel for everything going, just so you can get a feel for the entire environment of Wave. After that, we'll go through setting up a business. In this course, I'm going to take you through what bookkeeping with Wave would look like. A small real estate rental company called Street Rentals LLC. We'll be tracking their books through this course as I teach you other features such as setting up and sending invoices, going through the bank feed, manually adding bank statements, reconciling your account, and so much more. And the way I like to teach, I love using visuals. I need to show you. I can't just tell you and expect you to understand. And I try to throw in a quiz here and there as well so that you're actively thinking and able to retain what you learn in this experience. By the way, before we get started, if you're not already subscribed to the Profit Logic YouTube channel, I genuinely invite you to subscribe. It helps get this information out there, and the content I provide on this channel is meant to help educate small business owners in accounting and bookkeeping in a fun, simple, and easy to understand way. All right, so let's get started. So here we have Wave's main webpage. If you go up to pricing, you'll see a list with two columns. On the left, you have their starter plan, and on the right, their pro plan. And down here, you'll see a list of all their features that each offer. So the starter plan is completely free. It's your basic bookkeeping software. In a way, what it offers is kind of like a glorified spreadsheet, but you get a point and click and do a lot of cool things that just trying to set up a spreadsheet alone would not give you these added features and abilities, such as preparing your financial statements, reconciling your accounts. By the way, if you're just doing a spreadsheet to track your bookkeeping, definitely subscribe to this channel. I would love for you to graduate into something that is way more robust and follows the standard accounting principles that the IRS expects you to be doing with your bookkeeping. So definitely stick around. But with Wave in the starter plan, which you'll see later, you are able to create estimates, invoices, bills, and bookkeeping records. So you get to track your transactions. And I'm pretty sure you can upload your manual bank statements to import them, so you don't have to necessarily enter every transaction one by one. You can accept online payments and basically use their payment services. You're able to use their app as well, and you can get information about your finances. So you'll be able to run reports, track your customers, your vendors. We're going to go through all this soon. Now, in the Pro plan, there's two prices. It's $19 a month if you're paying monthly. It's $190 per year if you're going to pay annually. So this is a huge drop from QuickBooks, easily $100, $120 starter fee. So in addition, in their Pro plan, you have the basic accounting software, plus there's a discount on the rate they charge for fees for using their online payments. The most important feature is that you're allowed to auto import bank transactions. So that means that you're able to log in, set up, and link your bank accounts, your credit card accounts with your business, and the transactions come in automatically. It makes it easier for your bookkeeper or yourself to go through your transactions without having to wonder if you missed anything or forgot anything. It's also a lot quicker to reconcile as well. They have a auto merge feature as well to help categorize bank transactions. They have AI as well that helps in certain categories based on what you've entered in the past. You can also digitally capture unlimited receipts and track your expenses. There are a ton of automations as well for your invoices, asking for payment reminders automatically that will be sent out, maybe like if you set it as like a week later, a month later, so that you don't have to follow up with people yourself. And a handful of other features, which we'll probably talk about later, because they definitely advertise their pro plan within the starter plan. So we'll see some of that later. All right, so let's set up this account. And you are more than welcome to follow along. Use a burner email. It's 2026. If you don't have a burner email, you are missing out on all the ways you can hack around the internet. All right, so you'll click Get Started Now, and you can sign in with a Google account, or you can enter an email and a password. Okay, so I had already used my email to set up, so I won't be able to show you what it'll exactly look like when you're setting up, but in all likelihood, Wave is going to send you through a series of messages asking basically what your bookkeeping needs are about your business. But if you're coming in with a account already, let's say you're making a new business to follow along with this, then you can always go to switch business and then select create new business, and you can create more starter plan businesses in this one account, which is pretty useful. Again, if you're a real estate investor and you have multiple properties, that's one way to track books separately. Or if you have multiple businesses, you should always track your books separately. And if you want, you can even use Wave as a way to track your personal expenses. That's its own video that I should totally make one day. But for now, we're going to create a new business. This business is Maple Street Rentals LLC. Type of business is real estate, construction, home improvement. They're going to ask you about your industry so that they can help build your chart of accounts and also be able to recommend services for your use as well. You can say they're a landlord, and the type of organization, we'll say this one is a single member LLC. So that's automatically a sole proprietorship unless you elect to be a partnership or an S corporation. So next we'll select a plan. And we're going to just continue with starter. All right, so now we got Maple Street Rentals. And I'm going to begin by showing you an overview of Wave. So here we have the dashboard, and when you're first opening your business, they're going to give you a list of tasks for you to complete to basically get everything set up and help you step by step go from connecting your bank accounts if you're using Pro, going over your chart of accounts, showing you how to categorize transactions, set up your invoices, adding your customers, services, and setting up Wave payments. This goes away once you do these tasks. You can also click this arrow here to hide it if you don't plan on following their setup. So on the dashboard itself, they're going to show you cash flow. This is going to be the cash going in and out of your business, regardless of whether it's profit. It could be money coming from your personal bank account. As long as it's physical cash that enters into a bank, that's part of cash flow. It'll show you your profit and loss as well. This is your actual profit, the income you get from your customers, and the expenses you spend on the business. This chart will show you how those compare. And you can also check it from the last 2 years if you don't want to look at just the last year. They also have a widget here showing who still needs to be paid or who still owes money. Invoices payable to you, that's going to be your clients who haven't paid their invoices yet. If there's any that are coming due, they're going to list those here. And same thing with the bills you owe. If there's anything coming due, that'll be listed there. The next widget we have is net income. It's going to show you, and I use this one a lot for my own business. Sometimes I'll list out expenses for the year. So for example, I take a home office deduction and I just add that into my Wave ahead of time so that I can kind of see net income. All right, what's the real number going to be closer to, since whatever is current, if it's just going to be doing your books like month by month by month, it'll just be for that portion of the year. So that was a tangent, but something I like to play around with and keep track of. It's also a great comparison tool to see how last year compares to the current one in terms of your income, expenses, and profit or loss. Lastly, they have an expense breakdown chart. This is highly dependent on your chart of accounts and the expense accounts you set up, but it can be pretty helpful to see this breakdown if you're trying to just get a feel of where your money is going month to month or throughout the year. So that's the main dashboard. They've also updated the dashboard. So we're going to click on Try It Now to see their new version. So it looks like they've just changed the design of a couple of these widgets. It looks like it's a lot of the same, although your overdue invoices and bills are going to show up in the top left. And it looks like they have these different dashboard templates to pull up. Here's one that says bookkeeping first. It's going to put your expense breakdown at the top, your net income also at the top, and just prioritizes and rearranges these widgets according to whatever you want to see first. Let's see, there's sales spotlight as well, but it looks like it's pretty much the same widgets, just rearranged. We'll switch back for now. Okay, so over on, let's start with the top bar here. So your main business settings and your account settings, they're going to be found in the top right here under your business name. You'll see a link to your business settings, a link to Wave's integrations, as well as information about your business. Information about your profile. So you, the user, your profile settings. Over here, next to that drop down, you have this little question mark button. And this is basically their help center. Whether you're confused about something and you want to look up documentation, you can click Help Center. Otherwise, you can hit Chat or schedule to pay to speak with one of their experts. I definitely recommend knowing that chat is there. This could be a really quick way to answer a question. It's basically their own AI chatbot. You can access that as well by hitting this little speech bubble down there. Okay, next to the left of that, this is their Wave guide. And it looks like they're just suggesting a couple of different guides you can check out and use, especially as you're setting up your account. I don't use that feature as much as I would just accessing their chatbot. So over on the left, we have this nav bar, which if you're using Wave, this is going to be the nav bar you're using the most. So there's a create new button up here, and most of the manual transactions you will deal with in Wave, you will be able to find off of this create new button. So clicking that, you see we can create a new transaction, create a new estimate, create a new invoice or a recurring invoice, but I think that one's just pro plan. Same thing with a bill, a customer, vendor, or a product or service. And below that, we have the main dashboard button, and then we have sales and payments. This is going to be everything that has to do with your customers, your product, your service, and receiving payments as well. So just to quickly pop through some of these, we have where you'll set up your estimates. Same thing with invoices. And once these are set up, you'll see a different dashboard, which I'll show you later, that will show you a list of all your invoices. There is a button for payment setup. This is pretty useful if you want to be running all of your accounting through Wave. Personally, as a bookkeeper, I invoice all my clients through Wave, so I definitely use their payment setting, and you can do that either through the invoice. They also have the option to include a payment widget on your website or wherever you are posting your services. Next, we have recurring invoices. This is so that you can basically send a repeat invoice. You don't have to create a new one every month if you are doing monthly services, or in the case of this rentals business, they're going to be sending an invoice out for rent every month. Then setting up a recurring invoice would make a lot of sense. Next, we have checkouts. This is how you can set up online payments from your website. So that's their dashboard for setting this up. Next are customer statements. This is basically a report that you can send your customer. If you have some more complex service or product that has a myriad of ways you price things, probably more like business to business types of situations, you might need to send your customer a statement, just letting them know what they owe. This could also work with a rental, sending your tenant a statement of what they've paid, what they owe. So that's how you'd set them up there. Next, this is an important tab that once it's set up, you'll probably visit it frequently. This is going to be your dashboard for all the information regarding your customers. But to access that, you do have to add a customer, and we'll be doing that soon. Next, we have products and services. This is where you list anything that you're going to be putting on an invoice or be tracking in Wave. We'll definitely come back and be setting this up. So the next group on the nav bar is purchases, and this is going to be all the money that's going out of your business. So these are the expenses you are paying to run your overhead, to make business happen. And with purchases, you might be tracking bills. So a bill is money you owe someone else that you have not paid yet. Next are vendors. Kind of like the inverse of a customer. Your vendor is someone that you buy services or supplies from to run your business. You will include them here. Vendors also include the contractors you hire to help perform services in your business. Let's say you as a rental business, Maple Street, they hired a repair person to come through and fix something at the property. Then you're going to want to send them a 1099 tax form. And vendors, having a good list of vendors that are updated is a great way to track that information so that you can send a proper 1099 at the end of the year. We'll go over that later. But after that, we have products and services that are related to purchases. So this is going to be something that you pass through to a client. So for instance, in that example of a repair, that could be a service that, yes, the property manager is going to pay for, but they'll pass it through to the tenant who might have to owe on it. And that's the kinds of products and services that you as a business don't necessarily sell, but you are either frequently purchasing or passing through to your customers. So after that, there's a receipts section, and this is basically helping you set up so that you can track your receipts manually in the app. It's an additional service, so it does cost, it looks like $8 a month to add that service as well. I would imagine this would be particularly useful if you are in construction. You do work that's a lot of like job costing, a lot of buying a lot of different expenses, where it's very easy to forget to reimburse someone or lose track of expenses if there's just a lot of money moving around. Now, separate from this receipt service, you can upload receipts in Wave Accounting. I'll show you later, but this is a slightly different service. So next we have accounting section. This is the part of Wave I personally use the most, and you will probably use the most as well if you're doing your own bookkeeping. So transactions, which we will set up soon. This is going to be a list of all the transactions running through your business. They will each need to be categorized. They will need to be reviewed. But it's basically a list of all the money moving throughout your business. After that, there's a reconciliation tab here still, but recently in the last year, especially since the last time I made the first course on Wave, reconciliation has been moved to transactions. I'll show you what that looks like later and how to use it. So this tab is pretty much useless now. After that, we have chart of accounts. Chart of accounts is very important. It's basically the backbone of your bookkeeping. It's all the different accounts that will represent your expenses, your income, the money you have in the bank, the money owed to investors or a bank loan or your credit card, as well as tracking inventory, equipment. So we'll go through this soon. After that, they have a tab where you can hire a bookkeeper or access their Wave advisors. I haven't personally used this service. A client of mine has before, and it sounds like her experience at least was one of just an advisory role. But it does look like they offer assistance here as well. After that, there's this new section called Perks. It seems that Wave is starting to partner with other services, especially other business services and banking. So if you're not already familiar, QuickBooks is part of Intuit, which is also housing TurboTax. So anytime you use QuickBooks, they're going to want to send all of your information to TurboTax. Wave is different in that they're going to want you to try to work with H&R Block. I personally do work with H&R Block to do my own taxes, and I've never had a problem with them. It's actually been a great service. So if you're using Wave, they have a very seamless transfer of the information in Wave to H&R Block to file your taxes fairly easily. And that's if you're basically doing DIY tax prep or interested in using one of H&R Block's advisors. So it looks like they're also connected with Bluevine, connecting with a checking account. They have offers for funding, insurance, and it seems that all of these offers encouraging better integration with Wave than perhaps businesses that aren't partnered. So I'm sure they'll be adding more as time goes on. And then at the very bottom, they have some small business guides. So going back to the dashboard where we started, let's start setting up this company. So up here, you're going to get into the business settings by clicking the business name and going to business settings. So in the settings section, we have, to begin with, users. Now, another important feature of Wave Pro, if you plan on using a bookkeeper, whether it's hiring someone like myself or another bookkeeper you know, or having an accountant come into your books, your CPA, you're going to need to sign up for the Pro plan to be able to connect in that way. Or it looks like you can use Starter and just use H&R Block. But you're going to see these settings for users. So Pro plan will let you have multiple users. If you give them an admin role, they might be able to change a lot of different things, have full access more or less to your account. This is probably what your bookkeeper, your accountant would want to use. You also have an editor who can have limited access to your sales settings, full access to your accounting. This is probably a bookkeeper as well, or an assistant. And then there's a viewer, which could be someone when you're interviewing for a bookkeeper or an accountant and you just want to show them your books without them being able to change anything, but so that you can get a quote, then this would be a good option for that user. But again, this is only available for the Pro plan. So moving forward, Next, you'll see invoice setup here, or additional settings. I'm going to leave this as is right now. We're going to use the new user setup for invoices in the invoice section later. But if you want to go back and make changes, such as displaying a logo and whatnot, changing the logo or color, then you can do that here. Again, as part of the Pro plan, if you want to remove this Powered by Wave feature at the bottom, you'll have to upgrade. So you'll see a handful of invoice settings here, again with sending reminders, which is another Pro plan feature. Estimate settings as well, and so forth. So another setting under sales and payments are message templates. Again, this is a Pro feature, so if you want your invoice, for instance, to come with a specific message, to edit this message, then you would need the Pro plan in order to make that change. And it looks like they have email message templates for invoices, recurring invoices, basically any of the emails that would come through to a customer or a vendor. Again, here's the payments setup page. It just took us out of the business settings area. So you'll start to see a lot of the same pages are accessible from different points in the website. They all kind of come back together. But if you ever get booted out of the settings, for instance, just come back up here and click business settings again. Next, under accounting, you could change the fiscal year end. Most businesses are going to be the calendar year, but if it's different, then you can change that here. And we already set up the base currency in setup. After that, there's sales tax. You're going to have to create sales tax. If you are selling products, you'll need to create automated sales tax for every place that you would need to collect sales, every state you would need to collect sales tax for. And then you could set that up here, including the rate, which is the most important part. And after that, we have some banking payout settings. And again, we're being sent right back to the payment setup. So we're going to go right back to settings. After that, there are payroll settings. Again, payroll is a separate service. So even if you're using Wave Pro, you still need to pay for payroll separately. And payroll is $40 per month for full service tax payments as of this video, February of 2026, plus $6 per active employee. Pretty standard, probably cheaper than QuickBooks, but a pretty reliable service. They will basically deal and handle with your payroll taxes for you and automatically disperse payroll as well. So going back to business settings. Next, these are all more payroll features we're just going to skip. And then at the bottom under other, we have where you would manage your subscription. If you wanted to switch to Pro, this is where you would go. And then this is actually a really neat feature that is tucked away, is that you can export your data from Wave. You can export all your transactions via Excel as a CSV. If you were ever in a place where, let's say you're a real estate investor, you started with 1 or 2 properties, Wave was fine for your uses, but then you want to move over to QuickBooks later, then you would be able to not lose all your data. You could basically send over that information as a CSV file. You can export all your receipts as well as a zip file. Same thing with payroll, stubs, and employee info. So that's a cool little feature. I always forget it's there. But you can export your data from Wave if you ever plan on going to a different service in the future. or using this information in another tool. All right, so that's settings. As far as the business goes, most of the settings we're going to play with right now are going to be through these other pages. So for instance, we're going to start by setting up products and services. So for Maple Street Rentals, it's a service business. We're going to say there is 1 or 2 properties. They rent out these houses, but the main product or service rather is rent. So we're going to include rent. We'll call it monthly rent. We're going to include rent as a service. We'll leave price blank. This is something that is sold, so it can be added to an invoice. And when you're setting up your products and service, the second most important thing you need to add after the name of the product or service is to designate which income account it will go to. So what Wave is asking is that you need, when you have something that is sold, it needs to be tracked in an account meant to track those sales. So for monthly rent, we're going to include it in rental income. This is going to connect back to the chart of accounts, which we're going to set up soon as well. So keep that noted. It's okay if you don't understand it just yet. But basically, income account is going to be the account that tracks this particular income for this particular service. And then you can include sales tax if you need to. We don't need to, so we'll hit save. So right now for this rental income, we just have one service, and that's monthly rent. So that's the only product and service we're going to track for now for Maple Street Rentals. Let's go into the chart of accounts and set that up now before doing anything else, before creating a transaction, before adding other products or services or customers or vendors. We need to go into the chart of accounts. So to do that, you'll go into accounting and click chart of accounts. And Wave does a really good job of breaking this down in a way that's a little bit more easy to understand than just one long list of accounts. So your chart of accounts, as I was saying earlier, is like the spine. It's like the backbone of your entire accounting system. Wave, like QuickBooks, like most bookkeeping software, is based on double entry accounting. Now, I'm not going to teach you double entry accounting here, but the most important feature you need to know is that in double entry accounting, every transaction hits 2 accounts at least. And it's because there's going to be 2 sides of what's known as an accounting equation that always needs to be balanced. If you want a little deep dive into what double entry accounting is and how that looks in bookkeeping software, I explain a bit of it in a webinar, and I'll just tag it up here. I recommend checking that out so that you can get a better feel for what that means when I say that these softwares all depend on double entry accounting. But just for now, there's something called, I need you to understand that there's something called the accounting equation. It's that assets equals liabilities plus equity. So it's a very simple way of saying, here's what the business has, and here are the people who are entitled to it. For instance, let's say we have an asset. We buy a property, a house, and the house is partly a mortgage, partly the down payment, and the owner paying it off. So that house, who owns it? Mostly the bank, but also a little bit the business owner. So let's say the house is worth $300,000 and the business owner put down $100,000 and the bank put up a mortgage for $200,000. Now you have 2 sides of the equation balanced, but it's explaining who is entitled to it, who owns what. So These sections of the chart of accounts all fall under at that equation, assets equals liabilities plus equity. So this is all to say, like, I do not expect you to understand this right now. It can be a little difficult to grasp. I promise it's a simple concept at its root. However, for now, I bring this all up to say it is very important that your transactions are tracked properly and that you have an idea of how the chart of accounts is set up so that your books stay accurate. If you go through your transactions and just one by one, willy-nilly, just pick whatever category sounds most accurate, you are more than likely going to mess up your bookkeeping. There's a very specific balance that needs to be in play here, and not all accounts are the same. So Wave, as a software, breaks it down. You have under your chart accounts, you have your asset accounts. These usually look like cash in different bank accounts. It could be equipment. It's the inventory you have on hand. It's your accounts receivable. So like when you send out an invoice, that's going to be included in accounts receivable. It's money that's owed to you that the customer hasn't paid yet. And it's also where depreciation and amortization are tracked under, as well as any prepayments you might make. For example, if you sign up for an annual software plan and you're an accrual-based business, then that's a form of an asset. It's a service you haven't used yet that you're entitled to. So that's all tracked under assets. Next, under liabilities and credit cards, this is where you'll set up your credit card, lines of credit, sales tax that you owe to the state, which gets set up when you set up sales tax, accounts payable, the money you owe to vendors that you received a service for but you haven't paid yet, any payroll liabilities if you use their payroll account, money that's owed to you. So let's say you buy something on a personal card for the business. Now your business owes you money since you chipped in. That's one way to track it, is a liability to you as the owner. And other liabilities, if you were to investor, include some money. If you had an investor, put some money into the business, and you'd set that up under liabilities. Next, under income, these are going to be your income categories. We talked a little bit about rental income earlier. It's a category, the account that we're connecting back to the rent product, the service that we set up earlier. So remember, we set up rent and we included the income account as rental income. Well, back on the chart of accounts, under income, we see that same account, rental income. Anytime you can add accounts to track your products and services separately, which I highly recommend you do, so you can get a feel for how much each service makes money, who's performing. This all helps you generate better data and reports about your business in the future. But if you wanted to keep everything basic because you're scared of messing up your books, then you can just keep a sales account and put all sale income into that account. Here are some other categories. You can include a discount account for the money discounted on any products or services. You have an other income account. Let's say you get bank interest in your checking account for your business, and you get interest income. That's a form of other income you can include here. And this is the time for me to say that basically your chart of accounts is a living document, if you will. It's always going to expand and change depending on your business's tracking needs. Granted, you'll want to include a base number of accounts so that your tax preparer, your CPA at the end of the year, can break up your expenses and income in a way that the IRS likes to see. But your chart of accounts is also a wonderful tool to better track the money in your business. So if you have a really good bookkeeper, or if you learn this information deeply yourself, you're setting yourself up for becoming a much better data artist, if you will, in that you can get the information you need, track the KPIs you need, just straight out of your books. It is a really wonderful tool. So moving forward, we have all your expense accounts. This is going to be your accounting fees, computer hardware you may purchase, and that's up to you whether you want to treat that as an asset or just an expense that you expense in the year. If it was an asset, you'd probably depreciate it over time. So depending on how much you spend or what your CPA suggests, you could do either. This one I use all the time. Software, tracking your software for your business that you use, as well as meals and entertainment, office supplies. Office supplies is a great generic account. If you're not sure, if it's just a general expense, throw it in office supplies. You have professional fees. This is paying for a lawyer, an accountant, a bookkeeper. That would all fall under there. Also, accounting fees, you could track it that way for bookkeeping and accounting. There's telephone and landline as well. Utilities, don't forget, if you run your business out of your house, you can take a home office deduction, and you're going to want to track it on your books manually. So either yourself or your bookkeeper, they will need to know that information to track it. And then this section here is important, cost of goods sold. This is highly dependent on your industry and your business, whether you'll use this account or not. If you're a service-based business, you are not going to be using cost of goods sold. But let's say you were flipping houses and you are just making a ton of purchases for repairs on this flip that you're doing. Because that house is an asset, it's a product that you're basically selling, you're going to need to track all those expenses as cost of goods sold when you're repairing the flip. So that's separate for inventory-based businesses. You're basically tracking the expenses related to the product, specifically to the product, and separating that from normal business expenses like payroll or software, just like general running the LLC business expenses. Your payment processing fee, if you end up using Wave Payments, they'll create an account for you here. Same thing with payroll expenses. And this generic category, uncategorized expense, you'll see one for uncategorized income as well. That's going to be the list of transactions that have not been categorized yet, that have not been looked at by you or your bookkeeper. And I'll show you under transactions how to track that and use it. So lastly, we have equity, and this is the one that everyone gets the most confused about. Again, back to the accounting equation, you have assets equals liabilities plus equity. What you have and who owns it. So your equity is basically the money owed to you as a business owner. Now, under equity, you get equity in a business when you take all of the revenue and you subtract all the expenses. That's your profit. And you can retain that profit as earnings, but also money can enter the business not just by a liability, but through owner's contribution as well. And it can leave the business through a distribution. So particularly if you're an LLC, you are going to be putting in your owner investment. You might have spent money on that down payment for the rental. That's going to be an owner investment. And let's say you pay yourself. Under an LLC, it's just a direct flow through. If you take money out of that business and pay yourself, then that's going to be an owner drawing. So the transactions involving anything that's going to you personally, that will be under this equity account. And if you have partners or you end up having new shareholders in your business, then they would want to have their own accounts as well. All right, so that's the chart of accounts. So now that we're in a chart of accounts, let's do a quick little quiz. Okay, so here's a quiz question. So Maple Street Rentals is going to want to track one of their properties. We're going to call it 1234 Maple Street. Just use the street address for the property. Where in the chart of accounts would we want to put that account? Now, remember, this isn't the actual building. It's just the account that's going to track it. We're going to have to set up the building and the expenses and the costs of that building in a different scenario. Okay, so we're going to add it to, in this case, we're going to add it as inventory. This is an investor who is likely going to sell it in the future. Maybe not yet, but they're planning on using what's called the BRRRR method. They're going to rehab it, refinance it, and possibly sell it later on. So we're going to include the property under inventory, and this is just the account. It's not the actual transaction. We haven't tracked anything yet. This is the bucket we're going to put it in to get that information quickly. So we're going to add 1234 Maple Street. And now we added that property to the chart of accounts. So here's another practice example. Okay, so let's pause for a second and do a little quiz. Also, let there be light. Had to come back to this recording. Let's say Maple Street Rentals is planning on getting some business insurance. This is separate from property insurance. This is your typical general liability, professional liability insurance, and they want to make sure there's a category, an account on the chart of accounts that helps track insurance. So it'll be a bucket for different types of business-related insurance. Where in the chart of accounts would you set up that account? I'm going to give you a second. You could pause this video. Okay, so if we wanted to add an account to track an expense, an insurance expense, then yes, we would be going into the expenses section, and under operating expenses, we'd add a new account. We'll just call it insurance, specifically business insurance, and we'll hit save. And now scrolling back up, we could see it's part of our chart of accounts, separate from vehicles. And there you go. So if you're going to add accounts to the chart of accounts, this is usually the best place to do it. I'll show you later that you can also add it while you're working on a transaction, right out of the bank feed. So as you'll see throughout this course, there's usually multiple ways to do a thing in your books, depending on whatever current task you're working on. So there's rarely just one way to do a thing, which is a functionality feature of using bookkeeping software. So moving forward, we added a service, we did chart of accounts. Now let's get into setting up invoices. So one way to start was to do it through the business settings. I think they have a more useful setup within the Invoices main page. So the first time you open Invoices, it's going to look like this. They're going to want you to basically create your invoice template before you're starting to send them out. So the first thing they're going to ask you to do is add a logo. And I got one right here. So we've added a logo. And it looks like one of their cool AI features is that they can update with an accent color dependent on your logo, or you could just do it manually on your own. So we're going to use their AI feature, which is really convenient. And you could tell everything looks professional and attuned to what your business logo coloring is. So you could take that color, or you can use any of the color settings here to choose a logo, to choose an accent color. Next, they're going to ask you to choose a template format. The one we're looking at right here, right now, is contemporary. Here we have modern. And lastly, there is classic. So for this company, we're just going to go ahead and stick to contemporary. You'll notice that on the bottom here, there's a powered by Wave symbol. And that's going to show up on every one of your invoices. As long as you don't mind and you want to keep this free, just leave it as is. But if it really bothers you and you want to make sure the Wave logo is hidden, you'll have to upgrade to the Pro plan in order to access that feature. So for now, this looks great. So we'll continue. And next, they're going to bring you to this new invoice page. We'll come back to setting up a new invoice soon. But while we're here, you'll see that you're going to be able to add a customer from your customers list. You can preview your invoices. You'll be able to write in the invoice date, the due date, add items from your products and services, a bunch of cool stuff. So we're going to leave that for a moment. And the next thing we're going to set up after invoices is we're going to add a customer. So continuing in the sales and payments section, we'll go down to customers, which will give us the option to add a customer for the first time. So for our first customer, we're going to add in a tenant for one of the Maple Street Rentals. We'll add our first tenant, Grace Goodneighbor. First name Grace, last name Goodneighbor. And if you wanted to add a phone number, email as well, I highly recommend adding an email if you're intending on sending out invoices, as this is going to be the email that will auto-populate should you want to easily add a customer to an invoice. So we'll just, for now, put Grace at goodneighbor.co. And then you can include other information as well, such as an account number, website for the customer, notes, and here's their billing information that you can add, as well as shipping information. But for now, we're just going to hit save. So now when you go to the customers tab, you're going to see we have one customer, and that's Grace Goodneighbor. And if there was an open invoice, you would, or an overdue invoice, you would see some of that information right here. You can also import customers from a CSV file or continue to add a customer using this button. You can also always use the create new button and add a customer this way. And if you want to view or edit or do any other quick actions, you can always use this down arrow to find the action you want to perform that's related to the customer. So that looks good. So now it's your turn. Let's say there's a new tenant, a somewhat risky tenant, and you'll see what I mean soon, who goes by the name of Frank Fix-It-Wrong. How would you add Frank Fix-It-Wrong to Wave? You can hit pause if you want to go over this yourself on Wave. Otherwise, the answer is that you would either create new, add a customer here, or go to the customer section, add a customer this way, and you would include after that, we'll just hit save. And now when you go to the customers list, you can see we have multiple customers here. And there's also, once you do have a lot of customers, you can always use the search function to find them more quickly. So now that we have tenants, so we're going to leave the sales and payment section for now. And we're going to move down to purchases. And here we're going to set up our vendors. Now, I want you to notice something. This is really important, and it's true across all accounting software. In life, you might hear the term bill, invoice kind of get thrown around, and as like a consumer, they could mean the same thing for you. However, when you're working on the accounting for a business, bills are specific to vendors. Bills are what's sent to you as the business for money that you owe to a vendor for some kind of service or product that your business is going to use to operate the business. Comparatively, with customers receive invoices. You send out an invoice for services that you perform or goods that you ship that you are awaiting payment for from your customer. So invoices, bills are completely separate. And when you hear that terminology discussed in accounting and bookkeeping, make sure you know who it actually relates to. So with vendors, we're going to add a new vendor. And for our first vendor, we're going to add in a virtual assistant, someone who helps the business on a day-to-day basis, answering emails, maybe working on the social media. And their name is Sam Saves the Day. There are two types of vendors that Wave is going to ask you about, whether they're a regular vendor, so pretty much another business that you do business with to help run your business. That's someone who usually has their own LLC. There's a very specific service they help out with. These are going to be a lot of your like brick and mortar services and businesses. Or you're going to select whether they're a 1099 NEC contractor. I'm not going to go into a lot of depth on exactly what separates a 1099 NEC contractor from like an employee, but for anyone who, let's say, Sam Saves the Day, they were found on a site like Upwork. They mostly get to decide how they perform their tasks and when they perform their tasks. I just ask, or Maple Street Rentals just asks for a specific kind of outcomes and support. We're going to call them a 1099 NEC contractor. And regardless of whether you think you're going to have to send them a 1099 at the end of the year or not, make sure you select them as a contractor if that's what they are, because Wave will track how much you're paying this contractor and help you submit those 1099 statements to the vendor at the end of the year so that they can do their taxes. So the contractor type in this case is going to be an individual. You would find all this information on a W-9 form that you would have to send out to the 1099 contractor for them to fill. You get that information, you put it here in Wave. You can enter additional information as well, such as their website, phone number, and it looks like you could probably even set up information regarding direct deposit as well. So we're going to save our first vendor. Okay, so now we have Sam in our vendors list, very similar to the customers list. You can see there's this action area over here, this button here. You can come here to edit the vendor, create a bill, and also if you wanted to import from a CSV file or even Google contacts, you can bring in additional vendors that way as well. Okay, so it's your turn. Let's say there's a repair company for cupboards that Maple Street Rentals likes to use. Their name is the Cupboard Comeback, and you want to add them as vendor to your Wave. How would you do that? You can either pause this video or follow through with the answer right here. You just come to the Create New button, add a vendor. Under vendor name, we'll add the the cupboard comeback. And we're going to say it's a regular business. And then you'd add additional information as needed and hit save. All right, so now we have 2 vendors on the list. It's time to move forward. So let's move forward to the next major setup task, and that's to add the bank accounts for the business. So to do that, you can either go to the dashboard, you'll find connect your bank account here, although that's going to be part of the pro plan if you want to automatically bring in all your transactions imported from your bank that way. You'll see it's going to just send you to the view plans if you try to do it yourself. But I'm going to show you how to do it manually. So you'll come to accounting and you'll go to transactions. And here they're going to give you 3 options. Again, they're going to suggest importing it automatically using their pro plan. You can upload transactions with a CSV file using the bank statements from your bank, or you can add transactions manually. And in this case, we're going to bring up transactions through a CSV statement. And here's the instructions and setup page to do that. Now, I'm going to show you, I created 2 bank statements for educational purposes. The first is from Scrooge Duck Vault Bank. It's for the month of January in 2026. This is going to be the typical kind of bank statement you'll be able to download from a bank if you're using a major bank or a credit union. And most of the time, these are going to show up as PDFs. Sometimes your bank's going to give you an option to use to download a CSV file. But if that's not the case, I'm going to show you a really cool trick you can use to get around it. So you might have heard of something pretty new called ChatGPT. Well, it turns out you can do a lot of things with ChatGPT. So you'll pull up ChatGPT, and if you use their own pro plan, I think it's like $20 a month, which I honestly, as a business owner, I recommend, even if just for thinking through strategies and ideas about how you want to navigate your business. What you'll want to do is take that bank statement, you'll drag it in to the chat window, or you can add through add photos and files, and you basically enter the prompt, convert this PDF statement into a CSV file. And it looks like it's reading the documents. Okay, it looks like it created the CSV file. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, so it looks like it was able to pull up the date, the description, deposits, withdrawals, and balance. Let's see what Wave wants. So, trouble uploading a CSV. Let's look at their software doc. So it looks like it mostly wants date, amounts, and description. I'm gonna try to upload the file as is. Let's see if it works. If it rejects it, then we'll take out the balance and possibly change the deposits and withdrawals to show positive and negative numbers. All right, let's see how it goes. Okay, so I uploaded the statement, and now we need to add it to an account. Remember how I mentioned when you're setting up the chart of accounts, it's kind of like the buckets where we'll bring in those transactions. we need to set up the bank account this is going to connect to. So luckily there's this add button right here. We don't have to leave this page. You can either search for an account, or we'll add an asset type of bank and cash. And this one's going to be a checking account. And we'll add the name, which is Scrooge Duck Vault Bank, US currency. We'll hit save and upload. So it looks like they added the account to the chart of accounts. This is the date section. They're asking us to select date, so we'll confirm that yes, that is the date column. Here's the deposits. There's a deposits column, confirm deposits. Now we're selecting the description, which is here, and confirming import. Let's see if it brings up those withdrawals correctly. So here's uploading the statement. And now you'll see this is the bank feed. And by the way, if you were to automatically import your accounts, it would look like this too. So it looks like all proper to income transactions went through all right, and the 4 outgoing transactions were correct as well. Looks pretty good. Perfect. And you'll see there, Wave is going to show you the date, the description, which account it's connected to, and in this case it's a Scrooge Duck Vault Bank. And under category, these are all going to be uncategorized expenses and income, because either your bookkeeper, your accountant, or you as a business owner will be categorizing these yourself. And lastly, in this column, you're going to have the amount in black that is outgoing, usually your expenses, and green for incoming. And there will be action tabs here as well if you wanted to edit for more details, upload a receipt with the transaction, delete the transaction, or even copy it. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of using the bank feed, let's add the other account. So if you go under transactions, let's add the other account, the credit card account. This time, we'll go into chart of accounts and add credit card first. We're going to add a new account for that. It's a Chase Bank, and it's a credit card. US dollar is the currency. We'll hit save. Pretty simple. All right, now go back to transactions. You'll see there isn't a setup option as we saw the first time. Instead, you're going to come up to more, and here you'll see again you can connect your bank or with the Pro plan, or again we'll upload transactions. So we're going to pull up the credit card file. It'll look like this. From Chase Bank, we got a handful of charges as well as a payment on the card. So let's see if we could pull these up cleanly through Wave. So first, let's convert this file. So again, you could just copy the same prompt as last time. We'll drag in the credit card statement and upload this way. All right, let's see if it downloaded okay. And here we have the mock CSV file for the mock credit card statement. And here you can see we got the date, description, the charges, the payments, and balance. So let's see if Wave will add these. Let's see if Wave will add these correctly to the account. So here under payment account, you can see there's Chase Bank that we added. And we'll upload. It said, oops, something isn't right. The CSV file must contain an amount, date, and description column. Here's a learn more button. So let's see if there's any guidance on doing this for a credit card statement. So this one, since it's a credit card, We're going to change charges to withdrawals and payments to deposits. Now this is a liability account, so it acts a little differently from an asset account. So let's see if this works right. Hit upload, and this time it goes through. So here we'll select the date, confirm that that's the date column. Here's the charges, which are the withdrawals. We'll select that those are the charges. Now it wants a description, and here we have the description. And lastly, we'll confirm the import and upload the statement. Okay, so now you'll see in your transactions that the way they show the bank feed is just one long list of all your transactions according to date. You'll see that we have both Chase Bank transactions in here next to the Scrooge Stock Vault Bank transactions. But if we go over here to under all accounts and click on the drop down, we can pull up the transactions just from Chase Bank. So it looks like there were 4 transactions there, and we had 4 transactions here, and it looks like they match. Okay, this is looking good. So now that we have the bank set up, before we dive into all the transactions and what to do with them, we're going to start by setting up an invoice and sending an invoice to one of the tenants. So let's go back to sales and payments, and we can go to invoices, or we can use the create new button here and select invoice. And in this scenario, we're going to ask for rent from the first tenant, which is going to be from Grace Goodneighbor. Now, I should clarify here that if you are a real estate investor and you're watching this, this is not the way I would go about using the books for real estate investing. I recommend using property management software to track your tenants' rent and expenses and whatnot. That's a whole other separate video that I should make sometime soon. This video is just about how to use Wave. So please do not copy this method for setting up the bookkeeping for a rental company. This is really just a very light overview of how to use Wave as a software for any business. Just for the purpose of this little scenario, let's say we're going to send Grace Goodneighbor an invoice for rent, for January rent. So as you'll see, you can quickly add your customer using the customer button there. You can change the invoice number if you want to use a different system. You'll see there's the date of the invoice and the date that it's due. This is usually the date you send it out. And this is the due on receipt date, which will match it. Now, what's more important down here is adding an item. So remember when we set up products and services that are part of sales and payments, this is the item that you'll get to pull up here. So in this case, it's monthly rent. And here we'll add a description, say January 26 rent. I think you could get rid of the quantity section in settings. For now, we're just going to leave it as is. We'll do it one at a rate, rent of $2,000. We'll change it, the invoice date, to January 1st of the month, due on the 1st of the month. And if you wanted to add a discount, you can do that here. If you have credits to give to your tenant kind of thing, or your customer, you would include other notes and terms down here. And if you have the Pro plan, you can add files here, such as a statement or such as a customer statement or other information related to the product or service. And once that looks good, you could either hit preview and see how it's going to look on that nice invoice you brought up. And then you'll hit save and continue. You also have the option to just save and send it immediately, or save and immediately record a payment. So maybe you're creating the invoice after the fact. You want it in the system, but you already got the payment. So in this case, we'll hit save and continue. And here you're going to see the invoice in draft. You'll see that waive payments is off. Now, if you just wanted to send a paper invoice so that the client or customer can have it, you don't need to worry about this option. If you're going to get paid separately, you can do that through a different service outside of Wave. However, if you wanted to receive payments to turn on payments, this is where you're going to have to set up payments. So let's see how far I can go without running into a wall. So it looks like for a payment setup, they'll want to know information about your business, what your legal entity is. In this case, it's an LLC. We'll say it's a single member LLC. They're going to want to know information about your business, such as your address, your bank category, your EIN, DBA if you have one. And they're going to ask you other details as well, probably your address, your social security number, bank details that are related to where you're going to have your payments be deposited, some settings on customizing a statement, verifications on setting up, make sure that payments works and it connects to your bank account. So I will leave that to you if you want to set up payments. I personally use Wave for sending my own invoices and user payments. I've had a pretty decent time with it. There is a little bit of a delay between when the payments go through Wave and when they are deposited in your account, but there is an option to have your payments early, kind of like the way Venmo or other banks lately will give you an option for like an instant payout for a fee, usually around like 2%, I think, 1 or 2%, something like that. That's available through Wave as well. So let's get back to the invoice. And now you'll see that we have a draft. We'll go where we left off. We're going to open up that invoice again. And the other actions you have here are that you can make the invoice recurring. And in this case, I would because it's rent. And it looks like without the Pro plan, you can still have recurring invoices. So here, if you wanted to set up a recurring invoice, you would schedule it daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, or some other frequency that makes sense to you and your business. In this case, we'll say monthly on the 1st of every month. A repeatable invoice will be created on this date. Here's the 3rd. And it ends, you can choose a date or after a date. For now, we'll just leave it as never. And again, they're going to encourage you to use their payment system. And yeah, that's basically how you'll set it up. With their payments, they could set it up so that the payments, they happen automatically on behalf of the customer. So for now, we're just going to switch to manual payments. And then here we'll send automatically. For the recurring, if you want it sent automatically, you have to set it up for Pro. But if you want to go into Wave yourself, you could send it manually, and they'll just have the invoice draft for you prepared. All right, so I'm going to go back to our simple invoice. We're going to go ahead and approve it. So now under Invoices, this is our invoice dashboard. We can see that we have a list of all the invoices are open. Because I'm filming this in February, it's showing up as overdue. We're not going to worry about that right now. But let's say you're just using Wave manually and you got the rent maybe paid in cash or somewhere off of the invoice, then you'd have to come back and record the payment. Now, you might be wondering, what if your client does pay the invoice, but they're just paying through the bank feed, not through Wave, through a different service? I'm going to show you later how you track that the invoice was paid. And if they paid through Wave payments, this will get recorded automatically for you. Okay, so that's our first invoice. Now it's your turn. I want you to create an invoice for our other tenant, Frankie Fix It Wrong. How would you set up his first month, January 1st rent at a rate of $1,500? You could take a moment, pause the video here, go into Wave, play with it yourself. But the answer is that you would either come to Invoices and create a new invoice, or just come up to the Create New button here, hit Invoice. You would add a customer, or Frank fixed it wrong. Check over, make sure the invoice date is correct. This is for January rent. So we'd want it the first of the month, due on the first of the month. We'd add an item, in this case, monthly rent, with a rate of $1,500. Make sure everything looks good. Save, get it, preview it. Looks pretty good. We'll save and continue. And once we're clear that the invoice looks great, we'll approve the draft. And I forgot to mention earlier, if you want to send reminders if a client doesn't pay their invoice, you can send reminders 3 days later, a week later, on a date of your choosing. That's all part of the Pro plan, and you'd have to upgrade for that. You can also come back on here and charge a credit card. You could by manually adding it yourself, so that's an option as well. But we're gonna hit send invoice. And when you send an invoice, you can even send a link to your client that will bring them to the invoice, or your own PDF, or if you want the invoice sent via Wave, emailed to your client automatically, you again have to use Pro. But for now, we're just going to mark the invoice as sent. Okay, so now we look at invoices, and you can see both of them are here. They're overdue, but we're going to deal with that shortly. And on the top of the dashboard here, you'll see the total of overdue invoices, how much is due within the next 30 days. And they'll also track the average time it takes for you to get paid, and whether you have any upcoming payouts if you use Wave payments. Okay, so we've gone over setting up Wave, going over how to set up your chart of accounts, how to add customers and vendors, how to connect your bank, or rather manually add your bank statements for your business. And we've talked about how to send invoices. So next, let's finish up with the opposite side of an invoice, a bill, and look at creating bills in Wave. So same thing. They're going to show us the first time this create your first bill button when you go to bills under purchases. And when adding a bill, you're going to choose your vendor. And you know what? In this case, we're going to add a new vendor, the property management company. And they're going to be called the Keys and Knees Property Management Co. Here you're going to add the first name, last name as well, and any other additional info, just as you would adding a vendor on the vendor screen. So you'll want to put the date that the bill were incurred. We're going to say this happened on January 31st, and the due date was also January 31st. You can include a bill number, any notes you might have. And here we're going to pull up an item for the bill. Now, these items are going to be part of the products and services category for purchases. So just as you have products and services for your business, you can have products and services that you routinely purchase from your vendors included as line items in Wave. And that's what this section is for. For the expense category, for the items, we're just going to call it property management fee, since it's a recurring one. And the expense category does matter. It should relate to the purchase. And in this case, this is professional fees or dues. And the price is $900. So we're going to add that as a product. We'll save this for a second. We'll come back to it, don't worry. I just want to show you here under purchases, products and services. Now we can see the property management fee that will be recurring. So here we have the bill. Similar to an invoice, you can, as with invoices, you'll see under the bill section whether it's paid or not. And you can come here and record a payment once it's paid. So if you were to do that, you would say which payment method it was, if it was a check or cash. Let's say it was a check and the payment date was January 31st and it came out of Scrooge Duck Vault Bank. We'll click save and now it shows as paid. So that's just a quick little intro to vendors and bills. Now, I want to note something else here. If you go and set up a product or service using this menu to set it up, we're going to add another product, and this one's going to be called repair costs. And it's going to come up later, generic expense. So we'll leave price blank. It could be for any kind of repairs that occur on the property in the unit for where the tenants live. And you're going to see two buttons. You're going to see sell this and buy this. And if you want to use this product or service, in this case, as something that's going to show up on an invoice for a client or customer or tenant, then you'll want to click sell this. And that means if you're going to sell something, it needs to be traced back to an income account on the chart of accounts. And here you'll see we have rental income and sales. Neither is appropriate, so we're going to create a new income account, and this one's going to be called repair reimbursement. So we'll close that. So now we have an income account in the chart of accounts that's going to track all the income that comes through for a repair cost that we will invoice tenants for should they need to pay a repair expense. And we're also going to click buy this because we're going to outsource the repairs to a repair company, and that's going to be part of an expense account. Again, like I said, do not copy this for your rental company. Would do the books vastly differently from what I'm showing you. This is just a demo of how to use Wave. So here we're going to create a new expense account to track it separate from repairs related to the business. We're going to go into expense. We're going to put it under tools and supplies, under other tools and supplies. We're just going to call repair expense for property. So that's going to be tracked separately. Now we're going to save this, and you'll be able to see that if we were to create an invoice and we add an item, we have repair cost on there. And if we were to create a bill, so from like a repair company, that repair cost is an item on there as well. So we were just basically mapping the purchase and sell of this service in the chart of accounts. I'll show you an example later on how this plays out in a rental situation. But for now, we're just going to cancel that. Okay, so now that we've basically covered everything I wanted to show you regarding sales and payments and purchases, let's dive into accounting. So let's go to transactions. This is the part of Wave. It's the most important to understand because it's going to be where you spend most of your time if you're doing your own bookkeeping. And it's literally just categorizing all of your transactions or pairing them with other transactions that help give an accurate narrative of what's financially occurring in your business. So, like I said earlier, Wave just lists everything all in one place. If you wanted to look at transactions in individual accounts, you'd have to use this drop down to do so. But I'm going to take you through like a typical month of bookkeeping. So let's sort this from oldest to newest. There's also a handy little filter button here. If you were, let's say, coming back to your books again, something I use often is status. I would like to look at the transactions that have not been reviewed. I'm going to show you how to review them on the bank feed so that everything's a little bit more organized. You can see what kind of transactions are a certain type, whether it's a payment for an invoice, This filter can help you pick out a certain date, like a certain year you want to look at, or quarter, month, or some other custom amount of time. You can even choose a date range here. So yeah, I definitely recommend using filters if you're trying to find specific transactions in your books. So here is the transactions dashboard. What you do is, if you're doing your own books, is basically go line by line, categorizing each expense, income, and I'm going to point out right now, before we start doing this, if you were to go into the dashboard of Wave and you look at your profit and loss, right now it's going to show you an insane amount of income and expenses, and you're going to be like, what? I don't think I actually made that kind of money. Correct, because before any of these transactions get categorized, they're just in these bucket categories called uncategorized income and uncategorized expenses. So if there's like transfers in this, certain invoices that haven't been matched to the payment yet, then your dashboard is going to look wrong. So I brought that up just to say, don't look too deeply into your dashboard numbers until your books have been caught up, they're complete for the month, for the year. Basically, once they're up to date, then you can actually look at the dashboard. So don't get discouraged or freak out if the Wave dashboard looks really off and weird. They just haven't been categorized yet. So let's go through these transactions. And again, you'll have to sort. We want oldest to newest. So let's go over the month of January for Maple Street Rentals. So first here we have a rent deposit that came through the Scrooge Duck Vault Bank. We know that it's one of our tenants from earlier. We see our invoices. We know that it's Grace Goodneighbor. So when we go to the transactions feed, we're going to click the category. Oh wait, whoops. Okay, so when we go, this is something you're gonna have to do every time. Make sure you know what you're looking at. It's gonna, every time you leave this page, you're gonna have to re-filter or re-sort Wave as needed. Okay, so let's go to the first deposit, which is rent from Grace Goodneighbor. So you have all these category options. They list down here the actual accounts, like here's all your income accounts, and asset and liability and equity accounts. But they have these options here, which you're going to be tempted to just ignore. But I encourage you, when you're going through your transactions, just think about what's actually going on here. So we know that we received a payment for an invoice in Wave, and we know it's from Grace Goodneighbor. So we're going to match it to that invoice. And this looks good. We know it's correct. So we're going to mark it as reviewed. If we were to go back to invoices, now we see that Grace Goodneighbor is not on the unpaid list. If we go to all invoices, we can see that she has now paid her invoice. Pretty nifty. And now our overdue is dropped down to the other unpaid invoice. And because she paid on the day that the invoice went out, we can see that the average time to get paid is only 1 day. Cool. This is information that your basic spreadsheet cannot give you. Okay, so let's go back to transactions. Okay, so now that we're back on transactions, this is your turn. We know that we got Frank Fix It Wrong also paid his January 1st rent on January 1st. How would you categorize this transaction from the bank feed or the transactions list? So you do the same thing that we just went over. You go to category, And instead of trying to pick a category here, you're going to go to payment receive for an invoice and waive, and you're going to see Frank's outstanding invoice right there. And what we just did, we matched this bank deposit to the invoice, and we know that's correct, so we're going to mark it as reviewed, and we're going to move on to the next transactions. Okay, so after that, we have a software expense. This one we know is a kind of software expense. So let's type in software, and sure enough, there's an expense account dedicated to software, so we'll select that. Afterwards, we have an advertising expense. Again, how would you think to categorize this expense? You would probably either just drop down here looking for advertising, or because you know it's there, you could type in. Oh, we don't actually have an advertising expense account, do we? All right, let's quickly add one. Here's another teaching moment. You see that the account you need isn't there. If you scroll down to this category drop down, there's a button at the bottom that says add a new category. So we know this is a kind of expense, an operating expense. This is the advertising and marketing account, we'll call it. We'll click save. And now it populates as an advertising and marketing expense. So we're going to mark that as reviewed. Next, we have payment going out to the repair cabinet company. So let's pause for a second. I'm going to take you through a scenario that I mentioned earlier. Remember when we added a service to the billing and invoicing product service category. So let's say January 15th, Frank Fix-It-Wrong accidentally broke his cabinet in his apartment, tried to fix it himself, and it just didn't go right. So he finally told the property manager, and the property manager called up one of their favorite vendors, the Cupboard Comeback, and basically had them fix it for them. So in this scenario, we'll create a bill. Let's say, so for the item, we have the repair costs. You'd probably put the description in there as well. We're going to say it was billed on the 15th. The price was $200. We're going to save that. We're also going to invoice Frank for the repair. So we go to items, we have the repair costs, and this one's going to be $200 as well. Make sure you got the date correct. I think it was the 15th. And we'll save and continue. So now we see there's an open invoice for Frank Fix-It-Wrong to pay the repair. So let's go back to transactions and sort it oldest to newest. And we have the outgoing of $200 to pay the repair cabinet company. So in this case, we're going to be looking for a payment sent for a bill and waive so that we can match it to that outstanding bill. Let's see. Now, remember what I said. Make sure you know exactly what the item is and exactly how it relates to a scenario in Wave, because if you tried to do like if you try to connect it to the invoice for Frank Fix-It-Wrong, then things would have been really backwards. But however, you paid the repair cabinet company, and so we matched it there. And if we wanted to see more details, You could add the receipt for that, the invoice for that there. Okay, moving forward. Next, we have AI software subscription so that you can manually upload your bank statements as CSV files. We're going to basically call that a software expense as well. So we'll click that computer software expense, mark it as reviewed. After that, we have just basic business phone monthly fees. If you can't read that, again, you can just always upload more details. You'll get a description there. We know it's a withdrawal. You can change the category here as well. This one is going to be telephone wireless. We'll hit save. And notice it doesn't always save immediately. By the way, you can also change your transactions in bulk. So let's say you saw the software expense here and the software expense here. You can click this pencil icon to bulk edit transactions, and it's going to let you basically change one of these kind of things: category, sales tax, or the account. For here, we're going to hit, for this example, we'll hit category. And here we're going to change it to computer software. And if you want to immediately mark these as reviewed, you can click that button there and hit apply. And you'll see that it had changed. Just be sure when you're done doing a bulk edit like that, make sure you unselect the select all button here, or the select button there, so that whatever thing you change next won't get affected. Okay, so we'll mark the telephone wireless transaction as reviewed. All right, next we're coming to a new situation. So remember we added both a credit card and a bank. And on the statement for Scrooge Duck Vault, we see that there was a credit card payment for $200 to Chase Bank at the end of the month. And you can also see in the Chase Bank statement that there was a payment for $200 from the Scrooge Duck Vault Bank. And that is exactly what's showing up here. So whenever I see, as a bookkeeper, I see payments that say like credit card, and they name a bank that I know is also in the account, I'm going to automatically look for the other end of the transactions. So if this is $200 going out, that means $200 would be going in to the other account. So this one we know is $200 coming out of Scrooge Duck Vault Bank. And down here we could see a payment from Scrooge Duck Vault Bank going into Chase Bank. So to categorize and connect these transactions, again, you can click the category button, and instead of looking for the account down here, I want you to use one of these descriptions. It is a transfer to bank, credit card, or loan. And it's going to suggest which transaction it can match with. And here we see the payment from to the Chase Bank. So now both are no longer uncategorized. Instead, they are connected, and we can mark them for as reviewed. All right, we're almost done here. Okay, next we have property management fees. Now, remember we set up a bill earlier for this management fee. Again, I highly encourage you to be very aware and pay attention as you go through your transactions. It can be really tempting to just kind of quickly categorize as you see it and just mark it off. But you got to pay attention for things like bill payment, invoice, transfer, payment. These are the ones that might have something to do with another transaction that's already in the bank feed. So here we need to connect it to the bill payment. Remember, we go to payment sent for bill and wave. This time it's not showing up. And this is kind of one of the areas where Wave might have a weakness, is that there's no way to immediately connect these two from the bank feed if one of them is already categorized. So I think we had marked it as paid and we marked it as a check that was coming from Scrooge Vault Bank. So in that case, we want to change this to an uncategorized expense. This is an example where if you're going to try to manually use Wave, just really pay attention. In this case, if you had marked the bill as paid in the bill in the bill dashboard and you recorded the payment, there is no way to go back and match the two. So that means in this case, because this is a simple example, we know that we're going to have to remove one of these transactions for it to be accurate. They're up here now. I'll bring it back down. So in this case, one of these needs to be deleted. We're going to delete the one that was manually created in Wave. I'm going to leave the one from the bank import there. Now we'll mark this transaction as reviewed, and this should be pretty tidied up. Just to double check, go to purchases, look at the bills. They're both marked paid. The total is 900, 200. Okay, that looks all right. Now, you're going to be wondering, how do you keep track of it all? There's so many opportunities to just make mistakes. And you're right, there really are. When it comes to bookkeeping, there are so many ways you can make mistakes. But one way to at least double check and make sure everything's entered correctly and there's not too many transactions listed in Wave or too few that didn't make it from a bank, we're going to perform something known as bank reconciliation. And this is a thing that I always see business owners who are doing their own books just completely ignore because it sounds scary and complicated. And I'm here to tell you it's actually pretty easy, especially with Wave. So this is one of the updates from Wave. If you try to go to just reconciliation tab here in the nav bar, you're going to see it's reconciliation has moved. So that was a feature that was changed in the past year. They moved reconciliation as an on-off feature just straight out of the transactions feed. It's the same thing. It really didn't change much. But basically you could just have it all in one place. So if you turn reconciliation on, it's going to take you through their first time reconciliation setup. And there's really not much you need to set up here. They're just going to show you how to do reconciliation. So to reconcile an account, you have to look at one account at a time. And you really only have to do this, not for all the accounts in the chart of accounts, but just for the ones that are physical. So like your credit card, any checking, savings, bank accounts for the business. And in this case, we're going to want to reconcile two accounts, both the Scrooge Duck Vault Bank and the Chase Bank accounts. So we'll start with the Scrooge Duck Vault. Now to perform a reconciliation, you're basically going to need to get the bank statement for the last month, and this is something you should be doing monthly. In this case, we'll start with the Scrooge Duck Vault bank statement, and it's going to be asking for the statement end date, and here we know the statement end period was the 31st of January. So we'll enter that. And it's also going to ask for the closing balance. And in this case, the balance closed here at 2,000. So we're going to enter that as well. We'll hit start reconciling. And this is one of the cool ways. It kind of does it for you. So it showed us this immediate, hooray, your bank's match, your statement balance matches to what's in Wave. So we're going to ask to reconcile automatically. And it basically, normally in a bank reconciliation, at least in the past, before all these software features, you would literally have to go line by line and basically match every single transaction on the statement to every transaction in the books. You can still do that to double check, and it's encouraged that you do, especially if you have a lot of transactions. But once you see the transaction in the statement, you'll want to click match on the item in Wave. Now, I want to show you what it looks like if you have something missing. So let's go back. Before we end the reconciliation, let's go back to transactions. And let's just remove one of these. We'll remove the... You'll see now there's this little reconciliation icon here next to it once it's been reconciled. But we'll remove the advertising expense for 300. Let's say somehow it got missed. And let's try to perform a reconciliation again. So let's go back. All right, so this time, now it's showing us that there's a difference of $300. It's going to be a positive number. If there was an expense missing from the bank, it'll be a negative number. If there's too much in the bank and something is missing if there's not enough in the bank and there's like an income item missing. So here they'll show this is the closing balance that the bank reported. This is the balance in Wave, and this is what's not in Wave. So something is missing here, and you would not be able to see it in Wave, and we know because it's just not in Wave. That's when looking line by line makes a ton of sense to make sure all those transactions are there. So we see that there's a missing transaction. Because we're still in the transactions feed, we can add a transaction here. We'll add a withdrawal. We can see that the advertising expense was on the 12th for $300. For 300 on the 12th. So we add that, and now Wave matches. So we'll reconcile automatically. You can see all the items are marked reconciled, and now we can end the reconciliation for the month. So now we have a reconciliation history for this account, and you can see the statement end date for that time period, what day it was reconciled on, the starting and closing balances for it. And if you hit the pencil, you can see all the transactions in there as well. So that's reconciliation. Let's quickly do it together for Chase Bank. So same thing. We have the bank statement, and we know the ending balance is down here for 110. The statement period we have is ended on the 31st. You're going to find with credit card statements, they often like to do it middle of the month. It's annoying for reconciliation, but you just kind of got to work with it. So again, that was 31st, 110. And hit start reconciling. So we know it's all there. We imported it automatically, or we imported it manually, and we'll go to the reconciliation history and see the final reconciliation there. So that's it for reconciliation. It really is a lot more simple. It gets harder when you have more transactions, your business is more complex, things fall through the cracks, and then you have to go on this long manhunt for where's the missing transaction or the incorrect transaction, or who didn't pay, who got paid. That's the part of it that gets complicated when you have to kind of sleuth for the answers. But the actual act of it, not too hard. I do recommend having some way that you track this. Like if you're doing your own books, create a reoccurring to-do list item every month to reconcile your accounts monthly, and have a spreadsheet that you could track that month was reconciled, especially if you tend to do it in bulk, maybe at the end of the year. It could be really easy to forget where you were, although having the reconciliation history helps to see where you last left off. Okay. What else? Anything else? Oh, the most important thing of all. Okay, so you do all this bookkeeping, not just because you know you have to, but also because it is when you have all your financial information for your business in one place, tracked appropriately, you can get incredibly insightful data about your business. And the way to do that is through reports. So Wave only has a very select few reports. If you're using something like QuickBooks, they have way more, but the basics, the ones that you want to look at the most, they have at the top are your financial statements. This is your profit and loss, your income statement, the balance sheet, and statement of cash flows. Quick summary, profit and loss statement. This is like how much you made or how much you lost in a certain time period. It's always over a time period. So it could be for the month, over the span of a year, a quarter. This is what your CPA is going to want to see at the end of the year when you when they are filing your taxes to report your deductions and your income. Next, you have the balance sheet. This is kind of like your business's net worth, if you will. If you were to take all the assets you have, so the cash in the bank, property that your business owns, and you take all your liabilities, and you subtract out your liabilities, so any like credit cards that are due, any loans paid to investors or a loan to a bank, as well as the profit that the business has earned that's due to you. If you take all the assets and you subtract all of the liabilities, then you have kind of like that balance. It's a snapshot that exists on a certain day. So remember, profit and loss occurs over a certain time, a span of time. A balance sheet is just a snapshot on a day. Because depending on the business, money flows in and out all the time. So it's always changing. Next, you have statement of cash flow, and this is just strictly looking at money flowing in and out of the business. It doesn't matter if it was income. It could be money flowing out of your personal pocket flowing into the business. It could be money flowing from a loan. It could be an expense on a credit card. You're just looking at all the movement of cash over a period of time. So here's your profit and loss. We're going to pull up for Maple Street Rentals. We'll just pull up this just January date report. So you can see that total income was $3,500. Total expenses was $1,610. Net profit was $1,890. And if you click on details, you can see how this maps out in different accounts, such as the expense for advertising, and repair expenses, as well as income from your tenants. And this here at the bottom, your net profit, this is known as the bottom line. It's literally like, how do you make out after all the income is accounted for, after all the expenses are accounted for? Really, like, what did you actually make? And you see this little percentage number here. That's the percentage of total income that your actual profit is. So that's a pretty decent return. This is a report you should be looking at monthly, but only look at if your books are reconciled and all those transactions for that time period are reviewed. So that all those bank accounts are reconciled. And you know that everything's accurate, then you can actually trust that this number is accurate. So that's your profit and loss. By the way, at this, I don't know, I can't remember if I said it earlier, but just want to put it in there that if you're feeling at all overwhelmed by any of this, or you know by now that you are not going to be able to do this regularly, to do this accurately, I would be more than happy to do your books for you. So if that's a service you're interested in having so that you can focus instead on your business and the part of it that you are expertise in, please reach out. There will be a link in the description for the Profit Logic homepage. There you can set up a time to speak with me or send me an email just letting me know about your business and your bookkeeping needs, and I'd be more than thrilled to help you. All right, moving forward. Next, we have the balance sheet. So with the balance sheet, again, it's just a snapshot of a period of time. You're going to see your assets accounts and your liabilities accounts and your equity accounts. You're not going to see anything concerning income, nothing concerning expenses, just what the business owns and who is entitled to that financial value. So if we show details, you'll see there's the money in the bank. We are missing an asset, which is the property, and I'll show you that in one moment, how to add a transaction such as buying property, something that's a little more complex that might be split up. You're going to have to use a journal entry for that. Under here, we kept it simple. We just have the liability to Chase Bank, the $110 that is listed on the credit card. And then you have retained earnings. This was the profit from that bottom line that flows right into the balance sheet. The profit from the first period of this business. That's your balance sheet. We're going to make an adjustment real quick. So there are going to be sometimes in your business accounting, there might be certain transactions that are a little too complicated for just adding a deposit or withdrawal. And you will need to make a journal entry for that, or your accountant's going to need to make a journal entry for that. I really highly recommend not doing this if you are not fluent in double entry accounting, because there, again, like I said, there is a balance, and if you mess up the balance, your books are going to be inaccurate. So I'm just going to show you how to make a journal entry for the asset of the property, just to show you how it's done, how to use it in Wave. You'll notice that if you want to make a journal entry and you try to go create new, you're not going to find it on the list here. Instead, you're going to have to go down into transactions and go to the add transaction button, and there you can add a journal entry. So we're going to say the property was purchased a year prior in 2025. This journal entry is going to be, keep it really simple. Do not copy this for your own rental books. I'm just doing this to show the journal entry. We'll put down the property address. So it's an asset. Remember, we created the asset account to track it. We're going to say it's worth $300,000. And you're going to see here with a journal entry, There's always two sides, and there's a debit side and the credit side, and they have to balance. And they're going to show you the math for that down here and how much there's left in a difference. So you can't finish your journal entry and save it until there's an actual balance. So we debit an asset, the worth of the property. We're going to say that's building and land. And then the other side of it, we're going to say the owner of the LLC put their own funds in. And when you have a transaction like that, where it's an owner investment, the money wasn't in the bank account already for the business, you're going to go treat that as an owner investment or drawing. And we're going to say the owner put in $30,000. Yeah, $30,000 as a down payment, and just keep it really simple. Usually there's more costs and fees and other aspects to a journal entry for a property purchase. We're just going to say the rest of it is a bank loan. We'll say Scrooge Duck owns that one. So the loan was for the remaining, that $270,000. And now you could, that account will be a liability. And because it's not listed, we're going to add a new account for that loan from the bank. It's going to be not an expense, but a liability. We'll call it we're going to call it loan in line of credit. And we're going to say mortgage from Scrooge Duck Vault. Okay, so now this will add the property to the business's books. Looks good. So we're going to save. We'll go back to reports and pull up the balance sheet again. And here you'll see the worth of this business is actually a lot more than we just looked at. The business owns the property as well. So here, even though Maple Street Rentals owes money on the property, this is treated as an asset for the business. If the business were to dissolve, part of that equity needs to be paid back first to Scrooge Duck Vault, and then everything left over belongs to the owner. Remember, I said assets equals liabilities plus equity. We have the $301,890 split up between the liability to Jay's Bank, to Scrooge McDuck Vault, as well as the equity that the owner's entitled to, both their investment in the property, they're part of the purchase of property, the profit from rental income after you deduct expenses. So that's the bank, that's the balance sheet. And just to show you, so you know the difference, you're not going to see any of the liability, the asset, the property, none of that's going to be on profit and loss. All right, lastly, we have cash flow. And again, this one's a little more simple. We're going to just look at the period of that first month of January. You see there was a $3,500 inflow, a $1,500 outflow for a net cash change of $2,000 into the bank. And that was through income of money, cash coming in from sales, cash going out for purchases. If we look at show details, we could see what that was for. There was some money going out for paying down the credit card, money coming in from rental income, money going out for expenses. And the statement also shows some starting and ending balances of accounts as well. So some other reports to note here. If you're tracking 1099s for vendors, this is really useful when it comes time to send them 1099s. If you use Wave Payroll, which I think is I think it's like $40 a month plus extra for each individual employee. That's another service, but if you need reports regarding payroll, you'll find that here. Some customer and vendor reports are really useful. For instance, you can go to income by customer and find out one by one who brings in the most income, and that's where tracking expenses by customer can be pretty helpful. You can do that for vendors as well. It's also important to look at aged receivables if you send out a lot of invoices, and it's going to show you all the open unpaid invoices, how long they've been due, and the totals for each of those categories. You can do the same for what you owe to vendors. One thing that kind of bugs me about Wave is that when you go to transactions, you can't just search for let me see all my software expenses. So this is conveniently showing because software is in the description, but it's not coming up because software is a category. So don't look for individual accounts like expense accounts through searching transactions. Instead, under reports, you're going to want to go down to account balances or account transactions. This one I prefer because then you can go to account and pull up the specific account you want information about. You can put in the date range that you're concerned with and whether there's a certain contact involved, vendor or customer, and update report. And here you'll see a list of all the transactions in that account. So those are the main reports. And if you want like a good overall summary of your balances of each account, you can see that here as well. Okay, I think that just about sums it up for me. I basically took you through setting up Wave, an overview of each of these tabs and pages on Wave. We set up a chart of accounts. We added customers and vendors. We set up invoices. We sent invoices. We created bills and we sent bills. We manually added the bank accounts and credit card accounts. And I showed you how to convert it to a CSV file using AI. What else? We covered how to categorize transactions in the bank feed, in the transactions list. We covered how to handle some trickier, we covered matching transactions to information already inputted into Wave, like invoices and bills, and credit card payments matched to transfers to other bank accounts. We performed a reconciliation and looked at how simple it is to use Wave's reconciliation feature in the transactions list. And lastly, we covered reports. And now you have a good idea of how to review your financial statements. How are you feeling? I know I just vomited all this information on you. I really hope you at least have a good idea of how Wave works, how it might work for your business in particular. If you have any questions about anything covered here, please leave your questions in the comments and I will do my best to get back and answer as accurately as I can. Yeah, so if you found this video helpful, this tutorial helpful, be sure to give it a like. Let me know it was good. If there's anything I should make a secondary tutorial video about regarding using Wave, let me know as well. And lastly, if you need any help with bookkeeping, you're at the point where you just don't want to do it on your own, or you want to make sure someone else is doing it correctly, I'd be more than happy to help you with your bookkeeping. Just head on over to profitlogic.com. You can schedule a time to speak with me there or send me an email, and I'd be more than happy to connect with you. All right. I wish you the best of luck with your bookkeeping and with your Wave experience, and I'll see you all in the next video.